Well.
Hey.
Hey now. Hello there, friends, lovers, and thank you for joining us. This is 5 Minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. And we are glad you are here joining us. Today is July 21st, 2024. The day that was, the week that was. Current events are beyond explicable, and yet we're going to explain them. We're actually going to get into this.
Hey, pinch me. We're not in boxcars.
We are not in boxcars. Well, I don't know how many friends I've got, but it's more than a few who think that we're end of the world. Sorry, here I'm just getting I've got to figure out how to get my Facebook event to behave itself, because save something interesting for a moment here. I need 15 seconds to straighten this out.
Yeah, I'm just saying hello to everybody in the chat on Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, ask them, are we streaming on Facebook?
Are we streaming on Facebook? Jim, are we streaming on Facebook?
Because it's treating the event like it hasn't started on my Facebook.
How very strange.
Click here to go live. Well, it should already be live. Go live to start the event. Oh, well, there it is.
Okay.
I think.
Well, I mean, I see
okay, sorry about that, folks. This happened last week, too.
Yes. Jim says yes.
This happened last week, too, and the way that Facebook is handling events has changed, so that's not your problem, that's my problem. Let me get it together here. First of all, let me say hi to all of you in the chat. I do see, Jim, you are there on the Facebook side, and also on YouTube. Hey, help our view counts. Get those numbers up. Thank you very much for that. Hey. I do see many of our favorite people, regulars in the chat. Christopher, of course, says drop it because he knows when that theme is about to come in. Hello, Robin. Hello, Paul. Equal to Reality is in the house, as well as Ian. More folks to come, I am sure. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Okay, where was I? Today, July 21st, 2024, the 203rd day of this leap year. You know, it's a great year when they give you an extra day.
Well, it's leaping like it's going way too fast. I don't know how it's past the midpoint of July. I really don't.
It is. It was a little cloudy this afternoon in Motown. We are in the USA. And, it's getting to be 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it's dark. What do you mean it's dark? Well, because it's cloudy. But even still, it shouldn't have been as dark as it was. No, we passed the solstice. Man, I hope y'all are making the very best of the time you've got. That's part of what we're going to talk about today. You do have 163 days left in this year to make it outstanding. Heck, Christmas is right around the corner, 157 days away, so make sure you are ready for that.
Oh, and Halloween is next week.
Well, in Amy's world, at least we start setting up for Halloween next week. But no, Halloween in 102 days. And on this date, well, I'll tell you what, I started putting together notes for this show early, and I was working on it yesterday and looked at the on this date, which of course is a day early. Well, Neil Armstrong walks on the moon yesterday, July 20th, 1969. And again, there were several Apollo missions, moon missions, and then at some point in the late 70s, they just stopped. They just stopped going to the moon. And it's led some people to conclude, maybe we never really went to the moon. Maybe there was a conspiracy. In fact, there's a movie out this year. I don't know if I'm going to actually go see it, although the Scarlett Johansson fans I'm sure will. Basically a backup plan. If we don't make it to the moon, we better come up with a filmed version to convince people we went to the moon, that we did succeed. A lot of people out. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of the people, because most of my source for this is the internet. What does that really tell you? But there are people out there who believe that we never really went to the moon, never really walked on the moon. And I call on Occam, William of Occam, for this one. You all know what that means. And I only bring it up because of the crazy week we've had. Our presidential contender, our previous president, our recycled president, number 45, the 45th president of the United States, got shot at.
He got his ear pierced.
He got his ear pierced. And I don't mean to take it lightly, because not that I care that much about the dumpster, but unfortunately, an innocent guy did get killed,
Yes.
and two other people seriously injured.
Yeah,
So
it's awful.
crazy way to start the week. And then we have the RNC, the Republican National Convention, the Republican National Committee. RNC, I guess, is both of those. The convention was this week. And what does the Trumpster do? He decides his vice presidential pick is going to be J.D. Vance of Ohio. Nobody who was worried about Trump bringing in the world that is presaged in the dim hypothesis, Leonard Peikoff's book, the idea that we're going to go from this disintegrated culture, the so-called D2s, we're going to swing to the M2, the misintegrated, and that generally means some kind of fascist or religious dictatorship. Nobody thought Trump was going to be that. No, the idea is Trump will lead the way. He will act in a manner that will open the door to religious nationalism. Well, this week he sure opened the door, because he invited J.D. Vance to share the White House with him. This guy who wrote Hillbilly Elegy was brought up in the mountains. He was brought up in a rough and tumble life. But, he's a super genius. So he went to law school, became very successful, comes out of law school, starts hanging out with Peter Thiel and other high-end investors, makes his money that way, then decides he's going to run for office in Ohio, and now he's going to be the VP. In the middle of all of this, what does he do? This guy is brought up in the mountains with, his idea of religion was podunk religion, the 700 Club and Billy Graham and all that stuff. He tells stories about his grandmother used to criticize, really suspicious of these people, but would watch them all the time.
Growing up in the late 80s as a teenager, I thought, what could be more ridiculous than televangelists?
What could be more ridiculous than television? See,
people who still think that they're valid in 2024.
I mean, in a way, it's a heartening story that there are people out there who see these people are horrible and watch them anyway, because at least we can say at least some of the people watching them don't fall for it. Yeah, leaves open the question, why do they watch? So, yes, this week, Trumpster gets shot, says, I want my VP to be J.D. Vance. The guy that Yaron Brook has been warning us about, the second worst possible pick for vice presidential candidate. Fortunately, it wasn't Hawley this time around, but Vance isn't all that much better. Oh, I didn't even finish the story. What does he decide to do after coming out of the Appalachians, writing a book about that crazy childhood, succeeding in law school, succeeding with Peter Thiel and his fellow investor friends, and then becoming senator in Ohio? In the middle of all of that, he converts to Catholicism. And he's serious about it. He's written essays, which you can find on the interweb.
Yeah, I don't understand that at all. I just don't.
If you read his essay, you can understand it. He finds it a better, it's almost the Ayaan Hirsi Ali idea, but he believes it more than she does. He finds it a better answer than what he found in atheism. And
that's ridiculous.
It's interesting to read because he actually cites religious writings. A lot of us argue against religion, and we do it at a surface level because the metaphysics is so obviously screwy that it doesn't even seem like it's worth getting into the writings of Augustine, or Augustine as some of us prefer. And once you get into those writings, the writings of the Catholics, it actually goes really deep. And it's really wild. It takes you on a crazy journey. It's like watching a horror film because you really get into it. And that's exactly what J.D. Vance did. And he's found it more substantive, than what he was offered, either by people like Dawkins and Hitchens or by philosophers like Ayn Rand, who he did encounter, not personally, but her writings at some point. So that's where we're at. Trump is shot. Says J.D. Vance is going to be my guy. What happens on the other side of the, not the aisle, because this is the White House we're talking about, not the Capitol building, but what happens on the other side is Biden? I shouldn't laugh, but Joe Biden gets COVID. Of all things, was there anything that could have made him any weaker than the showing that we saw at the debate and the interview that he did afterward to try to show that, no, I'm not that out of it? Well, most of you know the end of the story by now. A couple hours before our show, Joseph R. Biden Jr. sent me this letter. Well, he sent all of us this letter. My fellow Americans, and the bottom line, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he's like, I'm out. I'm still going to be your president, but I'm out.
Yeah.
Which I think was the perfect move. I think Robert Trzynski released on one of the socials. He agrees with me. I mean, he would say I agree with him. There are people who are saying, hey, Biden, if you're that out of it, you shouldn't be dropping out of the race. You should be Spike Cohen. You know, the Libertarian Party is saying this. You shouldn't even be president. You should just leave if you're not up for this, which I thought was stupid, grade A stupid, because it takes a different level of fortitude and ability to say, I'm well up to completing my presidential term, than to say, but I don't know that I'm going to be up for another 4 years after that. And the real reason he's leaving isn't that anyway. The real reason he's leaving is not that he's not up for the job. You and I, we all know this. The real reason he's leaving is because he can't get elected. There is no way with his level of ability, whether he could do the job or not, he is going to get. So Biden is out. Last bit of the story, this crazy week that we're having, is Biden then in a tweet. What the hell kind of world do we live in now? Biden then in a tweet, he probably did a press release too, has said that he nominates, what's the word? He supports Kamala Harris, or as most of us still say, Kamala Harris.
Kamala.
Yeah, I like Kamala, but apparently it's Kamala.
Well, it's because her mother's name was Shamala. I'm not kidding.
You're kidding.
I'm not.
You're not kidding.
I'm not kidding.
You're really not kidding.
Kamala Harris's mother's name
On the
Shamala.
road to Kamala. Oh, man. What days we live in.
Shamala. So, I mean, now she was, I believe she was Indian. Yeah, she was born in...
Shyamala Gopalan Harris. That's her mother. Or is that Kamala? No, that's her mother.
That's her mother.
My mother, Shyamala Gopalan.
Shamala.
Well, there's an A there, so I'm assuming it's Shyamala.
I did my research.
Okay, Shyamala. I like that better. It sounds like the Three Dog Night song. Was a scientist who had two goals in life: to cure breast cancer and to raise her two daughters.
Yeah.
Oh. Well,
Yeah,
I hope she had some success with breast cancer. I know they haven't cured it in the sense of, found a cure, but...
Right. And she, and her, Kamala's father was Donald Harris, who was, I think he was originally, he's Black Jamaican, who was a, I forget, some kind of college professor of some kind, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but Shamala and Kamala.
So yesterday, well, not literally yesterday, but on the date yesterday, July 21st, man walks on the moon, 1969. This week, everything's going crazy, and if there weren't already enough conspiracy theories out there that the Earth is flat, so how could we have gone to the moon? Or we never really went to the moon because we didn't go back for another 50 years, and it was all... And the conspiracies around the shooting of Trump. There's no way that this guy on the roof could have done this thing without... And now there are people, and people who are names, people you would know, who are saying, no, Iran paid to have this happen. What do you mean Iran paid to have this happen? Well, because Biden has actually been harder on Iran than Trump would be. Trump will make deals with them. I'm not even going to get into all of it. I'm just going to say, Numquam ponenda est pluralitas sine necessitate. Occam's razor. Occam said, plurality must never be posited without necessity. The modern version of that, although there's some question if he ever actually said it in these words, entities must not be multiplied beyond necessity, or the simplest explanation is usually the right one, or the best one. I have good friends who are a little conspiracy-minded. without the words a little. And I totally get it. And having studied conspiracies, everything from Tuskegee to MK Ultra, I know there are conspiracies. There are conspiracies out there, and we've been through it. We've been through it with, a lot of them are public. Bay of Pigs. It's not that conspiracies don't happen. The problem is, in any domain, in regard to any of the news stories this week or for the last 50 years, since man did walk on the moon, you can look at any domain of life, anything that has ever happened, and you can find a conspiracy. You could find a conspiracy that says J.K. Rowling never actually wrote the Harry Potter series. It was somebody else.
It was, let me see here.
I mean, there was one gal who did actually write some stories that used some of the same words. I think she might have called non-magical people muggles, except they weren't people. They were like animals. There were enough coincidences that she tried to sue Scholastic, the publishers, and J.K. Rowling. Fortunately, didn't succeed at that. Coincidences happen, and conspiracies seem like an easy explanation. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows was published on this date in 2007.
Wow.
If you have not read the Harry Potter series yet, this is a good day to start. The day in which the final book was actually published. I can't believe it was 2007, because it seems like...
It doesn't seem that long for some reason.
It seems like only 17 years ago. No, it doesn't seem like 17 years. That's the weird part.
Just if anybody wants to go down memory lane with me with regard to Harry Potter, I've been listening to the Audible version of Harry Potter with Jim Dale, not Dan, Jim Dale, and I've been enjoying it pretty much. I keep seeing crazy, like, weird inconsistencies in the plots and plot holes and things like that. It's like, why they had this opportunity but they didn't take it in this book, yet they took it in that book. Anyway,
well, consistency in a book about magic can be a challenge.
I'm driving myself a little nuts, so I'm trying to enjoy it, but I'm having a hard time. I guess I'm just a little bit over analytical. You know, last night we did our Great Lakes Subjectivist meeting, and we went through Why Should One Act on Principle by Leonard Peikoff. And by the way, they put out a new kind of anthology of his Leonard Peikoff's essays called Why Act on Principle. So we have that on order.
Yes.
You can get that from Amazon or wherever else.
Actually, I'm so used to the title of the lecture that every time I see Why Should You Act on Principle, I'm thinking, no, the name of it is Why Should One Act on Principle? But that was the name of the lecture. Yes. And the essay that's included. The name of the book is a couple words different.
It is.
Throws me off.
Throwing me off totally. And on top of that, they didn't, unfortunately in the anthology, they did not have certainty and happiness as
How do you do a book on principles and not have certainty and happiness, achieving success in thought and action? By far one of the most formative essays for me in my experience of learning these ideas. But
I'm gonna give my friend Tal a call and ask him why.
You do that.
Why?
You do that. Straighten that boy out. But fortunately, the essay and the original Ford Hall Forum and Conceptual Conferences presentations are available online. It was interesting. After Why Should One Act on Principle, he gave that presentation at conceptual conferences. This was part of writing OPAR, Certainty and Happiness. And it's fun because when they released the audio, they released that version, plus the Q&A from Ford Hall Forum. Really good one. Well worth the listen. So, this date, Harry Potter, and you've been going through all the Harry Potter books.
Yeah, I have, yes. So
if anybody hasn't ever missed out on Harry Potter, or you only saw the movies, reach out to Amy and she will tell you got to read these books.
So I'm at the end of Goblet of Fire at this point. I'm trying to get through it because, I mean, it's just... my reaction right now, or has been for the last couple of books, has been... Just give Harry a goddamn break. Just give that boy a break. He deserves a break. My God, stop putting him in mortal danger all the time.
It is one of the most frustrating things about reading the book, that a long thread that runs through it is the primary protector in the book, this magician Dumbledore, keeps Harry, and everybody who works with Dumbledore, keeps Harry in the dark about so many things, in theory to protect him and also to keep certain other things from happening, but it just drives you nuts.
I just want to throw a boot at so many people.
There are reasons for it, but they don't always seem good, compelling reasons. This date, 2007, if you're a Harry Potter fan, can you believe it's been 14 years since the last book was published? Which means it was probably 13 years, 360 days since most of us read that last book.
Yeah.
So much fun showing up at the bookstore and long lines and
so great.
And wizard rock bands, young guys who were doing songs about Harry Potter,
I love it.
Showing up at the bookstores and rocking out while we're all standing in lines waiting for midnight or whenever the book went on sale, and then you take it home and read as much as you can.
Yeah, and I gotta say, wizard rock is sort of it's kind of defunct at this point, but the best wizard rock band who created the best songs was the Remus Lupins.
Now, you have to understand, wizard rock is rock music about a given thing. It's kind of like fan fiction, but cool rock music.
Yes.
And yes, the band, the Remus Lupins, which was spearheaded by one guy, Alex Carpenter, but occasionally he had other musicians where it was a full band. Sometimes he was solo. The coolest, look them up on YouTube, the Remus Lupins. Too cool.
Robin says, "You're a lizard, Harry."
You're a lizard. You're so silly. Okay. Real quick. It's all tying together, so I got to get it out here. It's National Ice Cream Day. Doesn't it seem like we just did National Ice Cream Day or National Chocolate Ice Cream Day or some kind of ice cream day?
International now, or?
I don't know.
Is it the Federation of Planets Ice Cream Day?
I've got to investigate, but this apparently is the real one, at least in the United States, because if you go to the link I put in the show notes, YouTube description, Facebook description, you'll see there are places that are giving out ice cream or giving discounts on ice cream or have special offers on ice cream. So this is somewhat official because all these places, Baskin-Robbins and a lot of fast food restaurants and 7-Eleven, they're doing the thing. So if you've got ice cream, this is a good day to have ice cream. That's so silly. It's always a good day to have ice cream. And finally, it's the birth date of the late but unquestionably great Robin Williams. And I mention that because I just want to know your favorite Robin Williams film. Could be the TV series, could be Mork and Mindy, but whatever your favorite Robin Williams thing is, share it in the chat. We're always looking for ideas. Mine is always a little unusual because you would assume from some of the conversations we've had that it would, of course, be Dead Poets Society. But no, I'm going to put in my vote for... Now, I got to say, we just saw Jurassic Park this weekend.
Yeah.
Which did not have Robin Williams in it.
What's your answer?
But it was directed by Steven Spielberg. And what Steven Spielberg film was Robin Williams in? I love the film Hook.
Oh, right. I forgot about Hook.
The update to the Peter Pan story. So
that's right.
Just... so good, and star power.
Watch that again.
Yeah.
We should watch that again now.
I love that.
I mean, I will never, ever be able to get over the fact how much I fell in love with Robin Williams as Mork in Mork and Mindy. I mean, jeez. I had this, let me just tell you a little bit about my biases as a child.
Yes.
Because I had certain biases. I had certain favorites and biases, and my biases were... I didn't like blonde women, not normally. I mean, anytime the good-looking guy in the movie or the show or whatever fell in love with a blonde woman, I just thought that it was just, I completely lost my respect for the guy. Because unfortunately, back in the 80s and the 70s and everything, blonde women were portrayed as the dumb ones. They had no intelligence, they had no skills, they had no savvy, they had no cunning, they had no nothing, and it was always this very strange bizarre relationship when somebody fell in love with a blonde woman, because you could tell that he wasn't interested in a challenge or to grow as a person or to improve himself or anything.
I hope none of you are blonde out there. I apologize.
So, well, of course, I did go blonde for a while.
That's true, you were.
And it is funny how people actually treated me differently when I was blonde. It was funny.
They expect you to have more fun.
I don't know. They kind of saw me as a little bit more approachable. It's very interesting. So, Robert, since you're a blonde, you're certainly much more approachable than I am.
I didn't have the prejudice in that way. I didn't have anything against blondes, but I was drawn to brunettes growing up.
So about that, I really appreciated the fact that Pam Dauber was a brunette. So,
Mork and Mindy.
And Mork and Mindy.
Gotcha.
So I appreciated that very, very much. So, yes.
Yeah.
Here's my story of bias.
Well, and I'll leave that there. But yes, definitely my favorite Robin Williams film is Hook. Again, it's a Steven Spielberg film. And that means, A-list movie stars. Maggie Smith plays, Granny Wendy in that film. Dustin Hoffman is Hook. It's just amazing. Bob Hoskins is in there as Smee, as the assistant to Hook. Julia Roberts was in the film. Just great film. But Mork and Mindy was great. Oh man, Jeff Bannister, you're hitting me on both sides here. Patch Adams, outstanding, and he says Bicentennial Man. Bicentennial Man, I'm trying to remember. I thought I had a really mixed reaction to that because it seemed kind of tragic.
I don't remember that much.
But I might be... It's hard to remember what plot elements were part of Bicentennial Man and which plot elements were part of AI, which was also Spielberg. He finished up Kubrick's last film when Kubrick couldn't finish it. Have to look into that. Christopher Smith mentions Popeye, which is interesting because, of course, we just lost Shelley Duvall, who played... Of course,
Olive
Oil in Popeye with Robin Williams. Very cool. Very good, that. Man, Enric, the Fisher King. That one hits hard. But Robin Williams often does. Yeah, the Fisher King with, was it Jeff Bridges? Yeah, Jeff Bridges. And Robin, man, that's a tough one. But there's a lot of those, and real gut-wrenching, heartbreaking scenes, even Good Will Hunting.
Yes.
Robin Williams in there just gets you.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that, actually.
And Greg is right. He made a great voice for Aladdin. Aladdin was what I consider to be the last of that great run of Disney films. My three favorites, all in a row. Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin. Those three films were epic. And the ones after that became a little too modern. They relied too much on modern and edgy and slapdash. But those three films... Man, just big heart, huge productions, outstanding music, brilliant scripting, and great art. Mm-hmm. So yes, absolutely, Aladdin, Robin Williams voiced that in a way nobody else could. I guess they did a live action update to it and let Will Smith do it. Someday maybe I'll even watch it because Will Smith is great. But how are you going to beat Robin Williams doing Aladdin?
You can't. You can never sing the You've Never Had a Friend Like Me song unless you're Robin Williams. So
that's true.
It's just the reality of it. I'm sorry.
That's true. And we have gone this long only to get through On This Date, but let's tie it all together. Let's bring it all together. You know what? Yeah. You know what brings it all together? I don't even have to do it because the next section, the next part of the show is always what are we listening to? What are we watching this week?
I was going to say the concept of existence.
Ooh.
That brings it all together.
Now that might sound a little bit broad, but the reason we mentioned Why Should One Act on Principle is because last night was GLOW, Great Lakes Objectivists, our monthly dinner meeting. If you weren't here, you went hungry, but also you missed an opportunity to talk about that essay, Why Should One Act on Principle?
So good.
And as Dr. Pigov goes through the idea, the concept of concepts and principles, he goes from very specific ones to very broad ones, the broadest one being what is.
We were talking a lot about, it's not so much in this particular essay, but, we're talking, riffing on it as we do in jazz, philosophical jazz. And talking about how a lot of people, when they say, oh well, you're being simplistic, or you can't think in terms of black and white, or that's just too simple, what they're really trying to say, at least the ones that are honest and just actually confused, a lot of people think of absolutes or principles or black and white kind of thing as dogmatic.
Yes.
As something, well, you memorize that by rote. This is the 10 Commandments we're talking about. You can't be so simplistic.
Right.
I understand that. And that's why it's really important to ask people, what do you mean by that?
Yes.
But yeah, and it's also one of the wonderful things that he points out is that in chemistry or the sciences or in math or whatever, we have principles everywhere. We have principles of communication, know your audience and all of this stuff. You've got, we call it perhaps tips and tricks or wisdom or whatever, but they're principles. They're general truths. They tie logically and causally to each other, and you can rely on them. So, and they're reality based. So it's interesting that when you get into morality, because morality is such a messed up situation in a lot of people's minds. That's when, and of course politics, but that's when you get into the higher abstractions, people kind of freak out about it.
So we had a discussion about that last night, and one of the points made in the essay, one of my favorite points, and I'm going to tie this to everything, which is why it had to come up. Leonard Peikoff, toward the latter third of the talk, mentions that if principles are going to do their job, if they're going to have the value they need to have in your life, they need to be done consistently. So he gives the example that if you tell lies, it's not that every word you say has to be a lie for you to be a liar. Mm-hmm. That you're a murderer even if you've only murdered a few people every now and then. You don't murder everybody you see. No, for principles to do their work, they need to be held and applied consistently.
Yes.
What was interesting about that to me, among other things, why would you apply them consistently? So that you get the label, you're an honest man, and if you ever tell a lie, you'll lose that. So that you don't go to jail? If you're a murderer, one murder gets you. No, the reason why you apply principles consistently is because if they are true, if they're really just identifications of facts of human living, they're for your own sake.
Yep.
When you find yourself tempted to violate a principle, you shouldn't say, oh, I should do this because otherwise I'd be dishonest. No, your logic to yourself, and you'll find this works in practice, should be, oh, wait, I should do this because honesty is going to work out in my favor.
Right.
It may not seem like it. I got some guy over here who's going to make me, pay through the nose if I don't lie to him. It doesn't. The point is, if the principle is true, it will help you understand, oh, wait, no, if I do the right thing, this is going to help me. I mean, maybe I get a free lunch today if I lie to this guy. But, there are 10 different ways in which that's going to come back and bite you in the tuchus, plus all of the psychological ways in which that's going to make you inconsistent in your own psychology, in your own morals.
Yes.
It's going to be too easy to lie the next time. You're going to carry the burden of guilt. But even worse than guilt, you're going to carry the burden of uncertainty. Because now you don't know what to do and when to tell the truth and when to be honest and when to be fair and when to trade and when to...
and
it's bottom line, let me just say this real quick. The bottom line is you do the right thing for your own sake. And if you can just remember that bit, none of this is God telling you what to do, your parents telling society, none of it. Not even you telling you what to do. It's for your own selfish sake.
Yep, it's in your self-interest to act in accordance with what's real.
Yes.
But it's also very interesting because growing up as a Catholic, as I grew up as a Catholic, there were so many instances of duty ethics and guilt, and if you don't do this way and think that way, you should feel guilty and you're no longer a good person and God will not love you, blah blah blah. And so, yeah, when you transition over from that kind of habitual thinking
Yeah.
of duty.
Yeah. It's easy to bring over this idea that I should do the right thing because I'll be happier in the long run.
So when you say, even if you even if you demand, you try to get you to obey yourself.
Yes.
Obey the dogma in your mind.
Blind
be
obedience
honest.
to yourself.
Blind obedience to yourself, yeah. Even in that situation, you can't think of it that way. It is a natural thing to be honest. It's a natural thing for a human being to be rational.
It works surprisingly well. More than you might think.
Yeah. I mean, all the wheels are greased in that way.
Yes.
And it's not, you don't have to contort yourself into some crazy pretzel shape in order to be moral.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what are we listening to this week? Obviously, Why Should One Act on Principle by Leonard Peikoff. Link to the audio version of that on YouTube is in the show notes. The other thing that happened this week was almost a miracle. Nah, not really.
Speaking of our Lord or God.
We've had a couple episodes where we talked about Yaron Brook's podcast. Some of the shows that he's done, especially the ones that he calls Rules for Life. Mm-hmm. He's like taking philosophy and not using it to criticize presidents or even to talk about philosophers, but to live your own best life. He's had a couple episodes where I would swear that he has heard this show before, because he will say something that I'm like, is that Yaron Brook talking or is that me? Well, on Friday, Yaron's been doing almost every weekday, a lot of shows, and if you've been missing some of them because there are so many of them, and I've talked to a few people who say, I love Yaron Brook, but I can't listen every day, there's just too much. Well, if you missed this one, this is one to listen to. It's in the show notes. This is Friday's episode, July 19th. The title of it was Chaos: Achieving Happiness in a Time of Chaos. And the explanation for that was, well, the news this week, right? And Yaron is covering the news, so he covered the news, which was chaos. The RNC, the speech, J.D. Vance, everything's been happening this week. But he had promised in advance, because things have been so chaotic and largely negative, that he was going to do a positive show on Friday. And he did. So he spent the first 25 minutes talking about the news of the day. And then he said, now what do you do? And he gave the answer. It's so overused a word these days. It was epic. It was outstanding.
Yeah, this is the one he was talking about chaos, right?
Well, he talked about chaos for 25 minutes.
Yeah. And then
he talked about
how to live.
What do you do?
Yeah, what do you do in that situation? Yeah.
And in some ways, it was a summation of the 19 episodes that he's done for Yaron's Rules for Life. But
I haven't gotten completely through it. But
this time he made the point explicitly in ways I'm not sure I've heard him do before.
Great.
And in a voice that sounded, I shouldn't keep saying it, but it sounded like exactly something I would say, which is, whatever's going on in politics, you should be out there having a great life.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on in politics that stops you from deciding, this is what I want. This is what I want to be. This is the work that I want to do. This is the kind of entertainment I want to enjoy. This is the kind of romance that I want in my life. These are the kind of friends I want to spend time with. And taking massive action to go out and make those things happen. Whether or not you do that does not depend on whether Obama or Trump or Biden or Bush or anybody else is president. It doesn't even depend, although it's somewhat affected by, what the Congress does, or what the House of Lords does, or what the government does. The vast majority of the choices you make in your life are entirely free, opened to you, and while some things are made harder because the world isn't quite the way that it should be, some things are made harder by government, some things, there are obstacles. You can deal with those. And Yaron explicitly made the point, look, there are people you know, and there are certainly people in the news. Look at anyway, Silicon Valley or Wall Street, or just read the news, there are people who are, despite everything going on right now, they're just going out and living great lives and being very successful and making great things happen, or very modest things happen, whatever level you want to function on. It was really great to hear somebody besides me saying, and Yaron has said these things before, but he just said them in a voice that rung, it resonated with me. It was so rich to me. And if you missed that episode, I heartily encourage it. And I want to take it one step further. Mm-hmm. I want you to imagine for a second, I mentioned this last night at Great Lakes Objectivists, I want you to imagine for a second that things are actually as bad as our fringe on either side says that it is. End of the world bad. Second Civil War bad. World War III bad. Nuclear bombs flying through the skies. But more than that, if you're on the left, the people on the right, or the people on the right, you're on the left, being rounded up in boxcars and taken to concentration camps or re-education centers. Just Handmaid's Tale, whatever your idea of the end of the world is, Hunger Games, pick your poison. Assume for a second that we were living in that kind of world, which you have to have noticed is nothing like the real world as it is. If you were in that world, if you were living in that world, now what do you do? And the amazing thing is, the answer is, you still do the best that you can with what you've got. You still don't give up. You still say, oh, okay, well, these are the circumstances. Now what am I going to do? Unless you're facing an active threat, a gun pointed at you. In which case you take whatever action you've got to take. Read The Ethics of Emergencies by Ayn Rand. You're still going to live the best life you can. Now, I know from some of the people in the chat, we've got folks in the chat who are from Canada. Yeah. America's hat. Good to see you up there. Hello.
No. Michigan
kidding.
Is the 11th province of
kidding.
Canada.
I often point to the Worldwide Freedom Index, which has said that in some ways Canada is substantially freer than the United States. I could not possibly respect you people more for that. So
I love Canadians.
Yes.
And I love Canadian hardcore punk rock bands from the late 70s.
Yes. But besides our friends from Soviet Kanukistan, there's also people from the UK and Europe and around the world. My next point I made last night at Great Lakes Objectivists here in Estados Unidos, the United States. Well, we got to get used to speaking Spanish. We're being taken over by all these immigrants. But I made this point last night. We're in Motown, Michigan, the mitten. Which way does that show on the camera there? Well, you got to kind of put up the other one too there. Anyway, in Michigan, but we're in Michigan, the Midwest, kind of middle mucky. It's not Appalachia, where J.D. Vance grew up. It's not, Montana, where the best people in the world run the world's best art gallery, incidentally. But it's also not the extremes of New York or California, the crazy liberals who are so far left. And it's not Texas, which would be fine if it wasn't for the heat. The United States, people in the United States have this prejudice, which may not be a prejudice, maybe it's true. We are still the freest, best country in the world. Now, if that sounds like an exaggeration, just look at the numbers. Look at GDP. Look at the productivity of the United States. It's amazing that China only recently caught up to the United States, even though they have 4 times the population, 4 times the human resource, the human mind. And I think we might have actually pulled ahead of them again. Which means, if the United States is the freest country in the world, you're going to argue Singapore, Taiwan, some quirky places have a little more freedom in some ways. If the United States is the freest place in the world, then we are further away from dictatorship and absolute slavery than, say, Europe. Wait a minute. France is not a place of dictatorship and slavery either. They're more controlled than we are in the United States, but they're relatively free. They're still able to live the kind of lives they want to live. Or the UK, or Hungary, or Poland. I shouldn't say Hungary. They're a little more mixed. But then take some of those worst cases. Our friend Dr. Robert Garmong just came from China, where he was able to do a surprising number of things for a communist dictatorship. Well, China isn't a communist dictatorship. It's a mixed economy run by a communist government, and it's a mess, and there are good reasons he got out. My point is, the United States is nowhere near where Europe is, and Europe is nowhere near where China is, and China, surprisingly enough, is nowhere near the Middle East. Hard to say how they would compare to Russia. Then you get into the politics, and it's a mess. My point is, we are so far from anything like what actual collapse would look like. We are so far from anything like North Korea or even Venezuela. Some things have gotten worse. Some things have gotten better. There's a lot of fighting to do. We do the fighting. You've seen the photographs we've shared with you when we will stand out in front of the White House with protest signs, and we will go to Chicago, and we will go to other places where we can protest and fight. And we write our letters to our Congress critters, and we do all the fighting. But the idea that because of all of that, we are affected. Mm-hmm. We are affected in living our own best lives by whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris are the next occupants of the White House? No, even if this was the Hunger Games, even if this was some dystopian nightmare, or even the world of the last pages of Atlas Shrugged, much less the pages of Anthem, the answer would still be, oh man, well, what am I going to do to live the best life I can? How am I going to be with somebody that I love? How am I going to raise my family? How am I going to do the very best I can to achieve happiness? Because that is the end goal, and that is what, even a dystopian nightmare you should never give up on. And in the world the way it is, you absolutely should not give up on.
Yeah. And I'll say not just to achieve happiness, but to achieve inner strength and self-esteem. And I say that because I've been actually achieving a lot more inner strength and self-esteem myself this year with my approach of half-assery. So, yeah, I've been, I was just looking up, how to improve your self-esteem. And one of his, try something new, or face your fears, or, do something that's going to make you uncomfortable. And boy, have I been doing a lot of that lately. I have been in this position where I'm marketing the Dinosaurs in Motion exhibit at the Henry Ford Museum, which is the best. And gosh, it's been so fulfilling and so rewarding, but it's been really, really difficult. And one of the things that's been extremely difficult for me, and I think for anybody in the situation where you're making yourself uncomfortable, is not listening to your own inner critic. Or excuses that you might be able to come up with when the next thing that has never happened before needs to happen. So I've definitely put myself out here in this position, and I've done a lot of things in terms of marketing it that were a lot more different than anybody else has done. I've gone into new territory. I've figured out ways to promote this exhibit in unorthodox ways, I'll say. And but they've turned out to be highly effective and extraordinarily fun. But at the same time, I'm constantly alerted to the fact, or I try not to even really pay attention, but I've been alerted too many times from people who are naysayers, who don't think it's appropriate, or it's not as dignified as we want to be, as we are the best museum in the world, and we're so extraordinarily credible, and everything. But I've really had to put myself into uncomfortable situations and keep going with it and keep the energy up. And I got to tell you, if anything in life, if you feel that you are not in control of your life, or you really don't know what you want, or you feel out of control with regard to your values or whatever, there isn't, I mean, I got to tell you, there isn't anything more extraordinary and more empowering than putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, or a whole set of uncomfortable situations, one after another, and getting through them with flying colors, or even half-assed colors. Even if it completely doesn't turn out exactly how you want it, there's still an achievement there, and it's not your normal achievement. It's not, oh, woohoo, I made it through another day of my daily grind. That's, if you feel that is all that you're capable of, really question that in yourself, because you can do a lot more with what you have, and you don't need to have the full 100% to go in and do an exceptional job. So anyway, there's my little pep talk for myself and for you all.
And the amazing thing is, if you do that, it actually works.
It does.
If you take action, you get what you want. And that's a lesson that I kind of needed this week. I needed that reminder. I needed to remember the secret.
Tell me, what is the secret?
Well, the secret is, under the law of attraction, the complete order of the universe is determined. This includes everything that comes into your life and everything that you experience. It does so through the magnetic power of your thoughts. Through the law of attraction, like attracts like. What you think about, you bring about. Okay, this is the woo secret. You've heard of the
Manifest.
Secret. Manifest. You will manifest things. So, for an episode of Life on Earth with Robert Nasir, I did an episode on The Secret. And the amazing thing about The Secret is that it sold 500,000 copies, made the author a multimillionaire, and some people actually got something out of it. And people will write about the success that they had because of this book. And like, how the hell is this load of woo, we'll use a polite word for that, this stupid idea, how is it that it got traction and it even worked for people? And the answer is that the kernel of truth, the little nugget in the middle of that, the idea that if you think about something enough, you make it happen. Well, the fact of the matter is, what you focus on is I'm not even going to put it that way. I don't even want to put it in woo terms. Let me say this. One of the greatest lessons regarding success that I've found, we did an episode on grit. Angela Lee Duckworth's concept of grit, this idea of passion and perseverance. With passion and perseverance, you can achieve amazing things. And that's absolutely true, but passion's an emotional state. And, emotions are automatic, depending on your prior thinking. But a crucial point, which is arguably controversial, emotions are also invoked by focus. I know the objectivists in the audiences are saying, no, they're a subconscious automatic integration. You don't control your emotions directly. And that's true, but right now at this moment, there are thousands of things, and I mean value-laden things that have some value, some meaning to you. Evaluation-heavy, emotionally ripe facts of reality, which you could choose to focus on. I mean, right now you're focused on this show. Hopefully it has some value for you and you're experiencing some happiness over that. But you could, in any given moment, focus on any of 1,000 things. And which facts of reality you focus on in any given moment, which truths you think about, what you choose to give your attention to, that's going to determine what emotions come to the fore, which emotions you're going to experience. So are you going to think about empowering truths, like your own past successes and the inspirational successes of other people that you know, or heroes? and the endless resources at your disposal, all of the opportunities that surround each and every one of us every day? Or will you think about your own insecurities? Or will you think about politics and the culture war? Think about climate change. Think about the last disappointment in your life. Will you think about what you haven't got? What you haven't done? Sadness, anger, guilt, success sapping, passion deadening, complacency. They're all there, ready to be tapped. Just change your focus and you will bring them right to the fore. But also, so too, there is joy and enthusiasm and optimism and excitement and pride. Your best day ever. Joie de vivre, the lust for life. The passion is there waiting for you to call on that too. And what is the deciding factor? There's more than one factor. Everything that happens to you is a factor. Everything affects your focus. But the overriding factor, what is the secret? The power you've got in any given moment, right now, is your decision about what to focus on, where to direct your attention. The facts out there, the facts that support complacency or empowerment, they are all out there. They're choices. They're like goods on the shelf of the supermarket, and you get to pick. You have far more power over your state. Well, you kind of know that. But because you have power over your state, you have far more power over your actions and your results than you realize. What you choose to think and what you choose to do. This is extreme ownership, radical empowerment. And this is why the secret works. Because once you take control over what you think about, you also take control over your own motivation and your own actions. This is purpose. This is the secret.
Yeah, I'll add to this and I'll say, this is something that I'm kind of integrating further and further in my life, is that don't think of your values as arbitrary. They are the opposite of arbitrary.
Right.
They are your values. You are a real entity in reality. You are a human being who has a specific nature, and you are empowered with reason and focus and integration and conceptualization and imagination. You are empowered with being able to express yourself clearly through your words and your writing and everything else. And so your values, rely on them and go after them, because if you if you're in a job or in a situation where you just don't like what you're doing, you're never going to tap into the power that you have. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to find the things that you love, the things that you value, the things that you for me and my dinosaur example, I wasn't terribly into dinosaurs until this experience, and I still am not. But dinosaurs make me happy. They make me smile. And they're also a little thorn in the side of young Earth creationists and things like that. And
there's value right there.
Dinosaurs are just happy making. They're happy making not just for me, but for the people around, and the guests who come to visit, the children who are literally bouncing up and down because they're so excited to see the dinosaurs. There's so much value coming out of this for me, and there's value in seeing other people experiencing value. It's so empowering, and so when you find you're into that kind of thing, pull out all the stops. Give yourself permission to be big, bold, loud, and proud, and go after it with all of the twinkle that you have in your eyes and all the magic that you can conjure, and trust in your logic and trust in your reason, trust in causality, and go for it. And never underestimate the motivating power of a value that you hold in bringing out the best in yourself and bringing out things that powers and skills you never thought you would ever be able to express. Never underestimate it. And so go for your values. They are yours for a reason, and they're values for a reason, and they are limitless in their encouragement of living.
Absolutely. So, again, if you missed Yaren's show, listen to it. If you need more of this, I've got much more that I'm not going to read to you. But if you want to hear the whole thing, listen to my episode, The Secret, from Life on Earth. The link to that is in the show notes. Christopher mentions Robbins. I assume you mean Anthony Robbins there. Yes. Hopefully this is at least as inspiring or motivating or at least interesting as that kind of content. I used to listen to some Anthony Robbins stuff. So I don't know, maybe that stuck with me.
Yeah, we have a question here from Jim on Facebook. I guess the moral of that story is that you shouldn't put yourself in an uncomfortable situation just to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, but rather you should put yourself in an uncomfortable situation that you need to be in. Would you agree? Yeah, that you want to be in, that you have passion to be in. Now you can put yourself, now I gotta say, this is something when I've given advice to young people, don't just say, well, I'm going to put in just 20% of my power on this spreadsheet that I don't feel like really doing. No. Even if you're doing something you don't particularly like, you can find pleasure and pride in doing something that you may not find that interesting, but find the standards that you want to exact them and express them, and put that kind of perseverance, diligence, and high conceptual thought, the highest conceptual thought you can put into it. Put that into it, because if you work on your process, if you work on how you think and your method of doing something, and you refine it and you hone it and you make it really exacting, really high standard, you're going to find yourself in a situation that's going to come in it's going to come in handy when you are in that situation where you can apply it to the thing that you really love. So, don't just go galt when you're given something to do that you don't want to do. But by the way, I hate that phrase in that context. but yeah, just, find pride even in situations that you might be uncomfortable with, that isn't necessarily even your cup of tea. It's okay to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would just add to that, there may be 10 good reasons to take advantage of an opportunity that nonetheless you'll be uncomfortable in. And you can use a lot of creative thinking to make it easier on yourself, including ask yourself a question: what would this look like if it was easier? One of my favorite Tim Ferriss questions. Or even Nathaniel Branden, his sentence stems: well, if this wasn't unpleasant, then this, and the other thing. Or I would be doing this differently. Or I would simply be focusing differently. Or I would be able to change some aspect of the situation to make it more pleasant. So yes, there may be 10 good reasons. Always be a little bit on the lookout for those false alternatives of, well, I need to do this and therefore I'm going to do this. Well, great, you need to do it, but what are the why? Why do you need to do it? What are the 10 good things that are going to flow from this? Well, I need to do it. I need to go to the DMV because I got to renew my license because I couldn't do it through the mail because of this other thing. Okay, you've got to go to the DMV, the Department of Motor Vehicles, or the Secretary of State, or whatever you call that in Europe, where they give you that little piece of paper that says you're allowed to drive an automobile. There are 10 things you could do while you're there. You could even take the unpleasant aspects of it and make a game out of that. Just as a mental exercise, 10 things I would do to make this place run better, and look around and see all the things they're doing wrong. Creativity. Turn things into values, if they're already values anyway, the value of getting that driver's license. So yeah, watch out for those false alternatives.
Yeah.
That's why I did that whole episode last week on what if. What if this was fun? What if this was of value to me? What if there was a hidden value in here that I haven't seen yet, but if I approached it the right way, would be there for me?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or what if this is just an opportunity for me to take something difficult and put on my cape and do it in style and look good and feel good? Creativity can take almost anything, including this latest news about Kamala Harris.
Oh, yeah, Kamala.
And you can find values in it, which we are going to be doing.
Yeah, I actually listened to her because I kept on typing in on YouTube, who is Kamala Harris, and all I'm getting is like a bunch of these sort of like, I don't know, like the life of Kamala. Let's start at the house that she grew up in, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't want that. I want to see her speak. I want to see her express her ideas. Are there any ideas? Are there, what kind of person is she when she's speaking?
Any substance.
And, there's so many like weird propaganda pieces from like ABC News and things like that. I'm like, no. And so I actually found a speech that she recently did. And she's, talking about, I'll tell you this. So Trump calls her Laughing Camilla because she is a smiley person. And you know what? I don't think that there's anything wrong with that at all.
I think I'd be good with that. Yeah.
I think I'm perfectly fine with that. As a matter of fact, I kind of like that. And
but she's not serious.
So she has charisma. She has a style in which she is expressing her thoughts. And she's not unintelligent. I mean, she actually used the word existential in terms of existential threat, not in terms of Schopenhauer and Nietzsche, but so I mean, she's not pandering to, she doesn't seem to have a cynicism of talking to the lowly peasants who are her constituents. Not that I've seen yet anyway. So there's some really refreshing things about her. She is a, run-of-the-mill Democrat. Oh. We all deserve welfare if we need it, blah, blah, blah. And, and all, but she is good on reproductive rights. She is good on a lot of things in those sorts of situations.
And she's pro-cop.
She was a former prosecutor, and but yeah, she seems like a very strong and charismatic and positive personality, and she doesn't appear to be somebody who has low energy or low self-esteem. So, I mean, just on the face of it that I've seen, maybe she has a chance against Trump. We'll see, but and she does have a background, like I said, Jamaican father and Indian mother, which is unusual. And so it'll be an interesting.
May we live in interesting times.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, never forget the secret. You have more power than you realize. The power of your choice, your focus, can impact everything from your metaphysics to your epistemology to your emotions. We talked about emotions are something you should never repress. You should introspect. You should be in touch with your emotions. But also don't forget how much control you have over them by curating your inputs, by managing your state, by making your focus deliberate.
Yes. And also, I just want to touch on something before we leave today. I know we're over, but the phrase "go gult," I'm starting to absolutely dislike that phrase.
Really?
Yes.
What does it mean to you to go Galt?
The idea that plug your ears if you haven't read Atlas Shrugged.
Spoiler alert.
But you should read it if you haven't. So John Galt is the person who is the organizer of all of these amazing industrialists and producers and inventors and thinkers, and he basically convinces them to take away their powerful skills to produce and to run businesses and things like that, and just basically go away from the world, and basically take away this power that these virtues that they are being punished, told that they're wrong for having, basically being punished for. Anyway, so the idea here is when people talk about that colloquially, especially in the last 10 years, they think, oh, I'm going to just not work as hard.
Oh,
or
yeah,
I'm
so-called quiet quitting.
Yeah, quiet quitting. There you go. I'm just not going to work as hard because I'm going to express my cynicism for the people around me. I'm not going to engage with them because they don't deserve the best of me. Well, guess what? You need to find the best within you. And, of course, you don't need to get if you're in a government job or some other job that is destructive to human life, say, for instance, not all government jobs are destructive to human life, but but in a situation like that, quit, find a different job, or, while you're looking for another job, don't put all of your effort into it. Fine. Those are very contextual, very specific situations. But don't just say to yourself, why bother? Why bother empowering myself and finding my values?
Yeah.
Why bother extending myself and putting myself into uncomfortable situations? I'm just going to be like John Galt. Well, you know what? That is not John Galt, and that is not what he did. And so anytime I hear that in that context with that meaning, I am kind of pissed.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, to give up is not what we're talking about.
Right.
Even to withhold the values you have to offer, but do it in the form of giving up. So Robin mentions in the chat the bum at the beginning of the story. Yeah, that is not the way to do it.
No.
Oh, no, that was Christopher. Yeah, the bum at the beginning. That is not the way to go Galt. The bum was not going Galt. Galt actually, we're doing so many spoilers here, but he actually expresses this in his speech, in which he says, if you're in a position to go off in a way where you're not letting the looters benefit from your work, but you can keep doing your work on your own and for your own sake.
Quentin Daniels did that.
He doesn't say, just stop doing work, give up. No, that is not what he does. It's not what any of the other strikers do. If you have that feeling of, well, to hell with this world, it's so screwed up, I just don't want to let anybody benefit from me being productive, that's not going Galt. That's giving up. That's something that I absolutely advise that you don't do. You don't want to be the bum at the beginning of the story. Right.
I mean, I would even go so far when John Galt is in the tunnel and Dagny notices him there because they're basically being called to bring in human lanterns to basically light the tunnels and light the track because all the signals are out. I would even go so far as to say when John Galt was a human lantern, he was really the best damn human lantern there ever existed. Because I couldn't even imagine him, he was in a specific situation and he was basically keeping his identity secret in that situation. And but anyway, even in that situation, I'm sure he had standards that he lived up to.
Even again, if we ever get to a dystopian world, I'm still not going to let them win. And the way that I'm not going to let them win is I'm going to live the best damn life I can. Absolutely. Okay, folks.
Yes.
I'm going to wrap it up there. But
Good.
I have one more point to make. Because during Yarenbrook's show, in which he was talking about how to live a great life despite all of the chaos, as he put it, he said one thing that you already know. You got to make a plan. You got to have a plan for your life. You've got to write out what you want. And ideally in each area of your life, but certainly in regard to your career and where you want to live. And then he said, then you execute and you do the things. And he said, and revise your plan. As things come along, new challenges and things change, and, revise your plan as you go along. That hit me really hard because I've caught myself being hesitant to make big plans when I know they have a substantial risk or failure factor. Like, man, if I really commit to this and then it doesn't work out, that's going to be really hard. And what was missing there, and you're probably saying, but you didn't already know this? Well, I did already know this, but in a way I didn't. Is the reminder that, whatever you commit to, at some point, you revisit it. You do checks every week and every month, and you say, oh, wait, do I need to revise the plan on a regular... That's my post-it note for the week. Revise the plan on a regular basis. Quote, unquote, Yarenbrook. Again, if you have read Getting Things Done, if you've read David Allen, if you've read... now I just forgot the name. Atomic Habits. Mm-hmm. If you've read any good books on being effective in getting things done, one of the things you know is you check in periodically, you look at your results, and you revise the plan on a regular basis. But again, because one of my hesitancies to commit to things is because I feel like, but if it doesn't work out, then I'll just lose all the motivation. I know I won't. I'll just revise the plan. I'll have learned something, and then I can take what I learned and figure out what I've got to do to work around the obstacles or to change my approach or whatever it's going to take. So that's my post-it note for the week. Do not let the turkeys get you down, to steal an old phrase. Do not let what you think is going wrong in the world matter that much, because it doesn't, and it doesn't have to. And it should not stop you from taking this one all too short, incredibly precious life you've got, and just keep being and keep improving your own amazing self.
True dat.
With that said, sorry we're running a little bit late, more than 5 minutes there. But thank you. Thank you for being with us. I see from the chat a lot of you are still with us. If you're listening to this after the fact too, thank you for listening as well. We've got to get our after the fact numbers. So please, if you like the show, like it. Click the like button on YouTube. And if you like it enough, share it. Whether you like it or not, share it. It's interesting. Let other people check it out, and they can come up with their own denunciations or praise. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. That's it. I'm just going to wrap it up. I'm just going to wish you all the success that you so richly deserve, as I always do. Justice is out there. Karma is a thing. Not literally karma, but you do get what you deserve in the long run, and that is what we hope and wish for you, because you are the best audience in podcasting.
Causality.
That's right, and that is